Every Sunday, millions of people sit down to watch 22 men chase a ball across a perfectly cut field. They call it the beautiful game. But the real story is much stranger. The sport you love today was born from blood, broken bones, and a tradition so violent that kings spent more than 300 years trying to stop it. And they failed. Why? Because football was never just a game, it was something much deeper. Go back almost 1000 years to medieval England. There are no stadiums, no referees, no uniforms, no whistles, only an inflated pig's bladder and two villages ready for battle. Hundreds of men, sometimes even thousands. The goal was not a net. It could be the church door of the next village, or a large stone, or a town gate. Sometimes these goals were over a mile apart. The match would run through rivers, muddy fields, forests, and busy streets. If you were standing in the way, you become part of the game whether you wanted to or not. This brutal event became known as mob football. There were almost no rules. Punching was allowed, kicking was allowed, dragging opponents through mud was allowed. People climbed over walls, crossed streams, and even entered houses while chasing the ball. Broken bones were common, serious injuries happened every year. Some players even died. Yet, people came back every year excited to play again. That raises an interesting question. Why would anyone enjoy something so dangerous? The answer is not what most people think. Historians Norbert Elias and Eric Dunning, who studied the history of sport and society, argued that the ball was never the most important part. The real purpose was social. Mob football acted like a pressure wall. Life in medieval England was so hard. People worked long hours. There were no holidays like today, no movies, no television, no social media. Most people rarely traveled outside their own village. Tension between neighboring communities could build up for years. Football gave everyone one day where those rivalries could explode under a shared tradition instead of turning into real wars. Think about that. The violence was not a mistake, it was the design. The game allowed people to fight without starting an actual conflict that could last for generations. Even the kings understood how powerful football had become. In 1314, King Edward II banned football in London, not because he cared about injuries. He believed men were spending too much time playing football and not enough time practicing archery. At that time, England depended on skilled archers to win wars. A man who chased a football instead of practicing with a bow was seen as danger to national defense. Other kings agreed. Over the next 300 years, at least six English kings tried to ban football. Some even threatened prison and heavy fines. Still, the game survived. People simply ignored the law. Why? Because traditions are often stronger than governments. For many villages, football was not entertainment, it was part of their identity. Some games were played during festivals like Showertide, marking the end of winter and the beginning of spring. Families gathered. Old arguments between neighborhoods found a symbolic ending. Young men proved their courage, strength, and endurance in front of the entire community. Winning brought pride that lasted all years. Even today, the town of Ashbourne in England still plays Royal Showertide football. The game covers the entire town. There are almost no boundaries. Hundreds of players join. Watching it feels like stepping back into the Middle Ages. But by the early 1800s, Britain itself was changing. Cities were growing, factories were appearing, schools wanted discipline, and the old version of football simply couldn't fit into the new world. England's elite boarding schools like Rugby, Eton, Harrow, and Winchester all played football. Here's the problem. Every school had different rules. Some allowed carrying the ball, others banned it. Some allowed kicking opponents, others did not. When our students from different schools met, nobody could agree on how to play. Imagine trying to start a football match today if one team believed they could use their hands and the other did not. Course. So teachers began writing official rule books, not just to organize games, but to teach discipline, teamwork, leadership, and self control. In other words, football stopped being about surviving course. It became a way to create civilized behavior. Then came the movement that changed sports forever. In 1863, representatives from several clubs met in a London tavern called the Freemasons' Tavern. Their goal was simple: create one set of rules everyone could follow. But one question divided the room: should players be allowed to carry the ball? Some said yes, others said no. They couldn't agree. So they separated. The group that supported carrying the ball eventually created rugby. The other group formed what became the Football Association. The single meeting gave birth to modern football. One decision, one afternoon, a sport that would eventually unite billions. But here's the most fascinating part: the violence never truly disappeared, it simply evolved. The first became tackles, the village mob became 11 teammates, the course became strategy, the shouting became chants, the battle became 90 minutes. Instead of settling rivalries in the streets, people now settle them on the scoreboards. The ancient tribal feeling never left, it only found a safer stage. Modern psychology supports this idea too. When your team scores, your brain releases dopamine, the same chemical linked to rewarded and excitement. When your team loses, your brain can react almost like you have experienced a personal failure. That's why people celebrate goals with complete strangers. That's why a missed penalty can ruin someone's mood for days. That's why fans say we won even though they never stepped into the field. The team became part of their identity. Scientists even have a name for this. It is called social identity. People naturally build part of who they are around the groups they belong to. Football clubs become modern tribes. The badge becomes a symbol of belonging. The stadium becomes a gathering place. The chants become shared traditions. In many cities, football is passed from grandparents to parents to children. Supporting a club is not just a hobby, it is a part of family story. And maybe that is why football became the world's most popular sport. Because underneath the tactics, trophies, and superstar players, it still satisfies the same human need it did a thousand years ago: to belong, to complete, to celebrate together, and to settle rivalry without turning neighbors into enemies. So, the next time you watch 22 men chase a ball across a field, remember what you are really seeing. You are watching more than a sport, you are watching 1000 years of a human history, a tradition born in course, shaped by kings, refined by schools, carried by generations, and transformed into global language that billions of people speak today. The blood may be gone, but the ancient heartbeat of the game is still there. Every kickoff, every tackle, every goal, every single Sunday.